How do you talk about all of this with your kids?
Yeah, I like to explain this. You know, so for me, it's less about sitting down with my kids and teaching them a lesson. It's really more about the way we live day to day, how I live. So I try to model mindful and intuitive eating by showing them that all foods fit and by not labeling things as good or bad. So we kind of figure out the hunger and fullness together and we question it together. So I want them to see that food is about nourishment and about enjoyment and connection because that's food. It's fun, right? Having ice cream with your best friend, going over for a dinner party. It's about joy and connection. And I want them to grow up trusting their bodies and knowing it's okay to eat when they're hungry and to stop when they're full, or if they're at a dinner party and they don't want to stop because they're full and they understand like this is okay. I'm okay with this decision. That's how I want them to be able to act.
Hi, and welcome to The Weekly Parent, a podcast for people who Google everything, overthink most things, and occasionally spiral, wondering if they're totally screwing it all up. I'm your host, Dr. Kiyah Duffy. Look, I'm not here to hand out gold stars or add one more item to your to-do list. Here at The Weekly Parent, we ask real questions of real people who, frankly, know more than we do and try to cut through the noise, filter the advice, and figure out what actually works. Let's dive in.
Today, I am with Emily Brown, who has a master's degree in clinical dietetics. She is also a registered and licensed dietitian nutritionist and a certified intuitive eating counselor, which is what I am so very excited to talk about with her today. This idea of intuitive eating.
I'm so excited. I mean, this is what I love talking about, and I'm trying to make a course more about this because after
Yes.
becoming a mom myself, I'm starting to realize like this is hard. No one's talking about the little nuances of okay, but I don't want to diet. How do I just kind of have a
Eat
relationship with
well.
food, and how do I just eat
Yes.
to the best of my ability? And I think people, it's either like this huge I need to be perfect healthy, or I'm just like I'm giving it all up and just eat whatever you want because no one talks about it. So I love it.
And how do I help my kids do that? I mean, that's really one of the things I was super excited to talk to you about is, yes, there is an element of it for myself and trying to communicate that with my kids. I also find despite all of the training that I have had, I still find it challenging and it's amazing to me. And if I'm struggling with it, surely other people are too.
Yes, like I'm a dietitian and I'm still struggling with it because, before I was a mom, it's one thing to tell people things,
Mhm.
but then to experience kids and be like, "Oh, that actually doesn't really work all the time." So, this is a new journey for me as well. So yes, I understand.
Love it. Yeah, well, I can't wait to have this conversation. I am curious because I am not a registered dietitian or a licensed or registered dietitian nutritionist. What is the distinction?
Yes. Okay. So anybody could be a nutritionist. People could take the 12-week certificate or just like say like, "Oh, I'm just good at nutrition." So to be a registered dietitian, you have to have an undergrad in nutrition, and then you have to do a 1,200-hour internship, and then pass a board certification exam, and then keep up with the trainings to re-up that certification every 5 years. So
And your licensure. Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, it is a process. Yeah.
yeah,
You are legitimate, is what it means.
yes.
I have just been used to seeing RD, not RDN necessarily.
So people have been adding registered dietitian nutritionist, so it kind of clicks in people's head.
Gotcha. And Emily, I want to just jump right in. When I think about intuitive eating, the phrase mindful eating also
Mhm,
comes
mhm,
to mind for
mhm.
me. They are different words. I wonder if they are actually different things. And so, first, let's just put some definitions out there. Mindful eating, intuitive eating. What do you use and how do you think about them? Are they the same? Are they different? And if they are different, what are those sort of key differences?
Yes, I think they are different, but kind of need to be used together, right? So I think mindful eating is really about coming to our plates and like being present with our food. I think in today's world, we're all so crazy, so busy, eating in the car, eating on the go, eating while we get ready. We're not actually being present with the food and tasting it and, savoring it and enjoying it and slowing down and feeling it in our bodies. So that's what I think about mindfulness. Right? Everyone's talking about this mindfulness practice in like yoga and meditation, and it's the same thing. Now let's bring that to our food when we're eating. And we'll go more into that. But intuitive eating is kind of goes along with that, but it's actually being present with what we are craving, what our body needs, what we want. And I also think this word craving has gotten such a bad rap, but cravings are really important to our bodies. They are telling us something. And instead of saying, I shouldn't crave that, let's ignore it. No, why? Why am I craving sugar? Why am I craving chocolate? Why am I craving meat? Oh, do I need more iron? Have I not eaten enough today? So my body's craving the fastest source of energy, AKA sugar.
Ah,
And if we ignore those, then this is where the binge restrict cycle comes. This is where the overeating sweets comes because we're not paying attention to it. Right? So intuitive eating is really important. And we've lost so much touch with that because we're listening to these trainers or these influencers or everybody else telling us what to eat. They're not in our bodies. They
yeah.
don't know how much sleep we've gotten. They don't know our food preferences. They don't know our food environment. They don't know our schedules. Only we know that. So we could take advice from other people, but then we need to really tune into our own health and how that's going to fit with us.
That is so very useful. Mindfulness is really about how we are with the food once we have it, and that intuitive piece is like, what is it that I really need, and asking why. I really like that distinction. That makes it really easy, and they are really kind of two sides of a coin in
Yeah.
that respect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there is no shortage of advice about how you should eat out in the world. And I find it so stressful. And I have experience in reading studies and in determining whether the advice we're getting is good or not. And one of the things I talk a lot about with people is that advice is only as good as, um, let me say this differently. I have a goal that I am trying to get to, and I can use evidence to help me understand what kinds of actions, behaviors might help me achieve those goals. And people can give me advice about how I achieve those goals. But if that advice doesn't also point to helping me achieve my specific goals for health, for life, for, whatever it is, the advice isn't like, I can let it go. I don't need to listen to every piece of advice that comes in because it could be pointing me in an entirely different direction. And this point that you just made, advice comes without knowing the specifics of your life, of your stressors, of your time frame, of your access to food, availability, your skill in cooking, your interest in cooking. Um, all of those things are still important elements to helping any individual person or family figure out how to move forward through this sea. And I think that is probably where this idea of intuitive eating really comes in. And
Yeah. Yeah. And with that, I tell my clients this a lot. Like, I could tell you all of these things and you could do the actions of all of these things, but that doesn't matter as much to me as you taking in what I say and really thinking about it, getting curious, bringing awareness to what I said throughout your week. I even tell my clients, I don't even really actually want you to do any of these actions this week. I want you to just start thinking about, how is this going to fit into my life? Like,
yes,
where is my motivation?
yeah,
What does my body feel like? Like, where am I struggling the most? What am I craving? I really don't even want them to change anything. I just want them to get curious. I just want
hmm
them to be aware. That's it. Right. And is what I'm saying, like, do they want to do it? Do they have the motivation to do it? Are they
hmm
ready to do it? Right? And that's the foundation, because ultimately I don't want my clients to need me, right? I want
right.
to teach them how to question themselves and ask themselves these things around food, mindfulness, intuitive eating, because that is something they could do for the rest of their life. Even the diet that they have right now, their eating styles they have right now will not be the rest of their life, right? So if I just talk about the food, that's not going to help them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I really love what is my motivation? I really love the idea of that question. So we started by saying that mindfulness there's no shortage of advice on how we should all be eating and living our lives. But I do feel like mindful intuitive eating is out there more and it's getting a lot of attention. So why do you think that is? And is there, I like to come from a place of understanding where we have evidence to be making decisions about what we're doing. So what is it that we know? What is the science behind mindful intuitive eating and kind of where does that stand right now?
Yeah, I'm going to answer that question, and then I'm going to give a few examples from research, just little
Right.
snippets. And I'm sure she's going to put them in the show notes if you guys want to actually look at the research articles. So with that, I think mindful and intuitive eating are getting so much attention because people are tired of diets that don't work long term. Kind of like what I just said. Anyone's diet, and I think of a diet of just their eating style, their eating patterns, in general, is never going to be lifelong. Right, because they grow up, they have different needs, preferences, of, financial ability, environmental factors, kids or pregnancy, postpartum. And it's always going to change. So we've seen over and over that restriction and rigid rules usually backfires because there's like this obsession. And I kind of refer to it like COVID, right? When you can't do something, what do you want to do? Everything
That.
you can't do,
Yeah.
right? So when you have these rules and this rigid structure, it it creates obsession. So this leaves people feeling so much more disconnected from their bodies. The science behind intuitive eating is showing us that when people practice it, they often experience less disordered eating, improved mental health, and sometimes even better physical health markers like blood pressure and cholesterol. Because we're not actually realizing stress plays so much more of a role in health, overall health, than the actual food. And this is I've seen people say, "Oh, this person eats all this junk, quote unquote, and they're so healthy." Yeah, because they're not stressed about it. You are in your head 24/7 thinking about every single bite you're putting into your body, and you're putting your body into this fight or flight state, like we're running from a bear. And
Hmm.
when you're running from a bear, your body turns off, you know, areas that it doesn't need, such as digestion, absorption. So if those are turned off, well, kind of leads to bad situations here. So again, mindful eating, calming our bodies down. So, and then for moms especially, there's this craving for a more balanced, sustainable approach to food, especially when there's these crazy little ones rolling around, right? It's something that doesn't involve obsession or guilt, but instead models a healthy relationship with food for our kids. Why we don't want our kids to be obsessed with this for the rest of our life. So we want to be able to model that for them, right? And build trust with their bodies. And the research is backing up that it works better than restriction because again, restriction puts our body into stress and it slows down our metabolism, right? So, I'll go into a few like little snippets of article, the Psychology Health, along longitudinal study in 2010 followed 1,500 people over 8 years and found that those who embraced intuitive eating in adolescence, see, starting young, and increased it over time, had a lower risk of depression, low self esteem, body dissatisfaction, unhealthy weight controlling behaviors, binge eating in young adulthoods, right?
Yeah. I mean, think about anybody who grew up, any listener who grew up having some kind of concern about their own eating or think about the amount of mental energy you maybe put into thinking about food and where all of that could have gone instead.
I know.
Yeah.
I always tell people you should, recommended eating 3 times a day. Like, and we could go into that too. So that's like what, a third of our life,
Yeah.
right? Okay, hello. Let's not waste that much life energy thinking about this. Of course, you need to think of some to be able to nourish our body and have the energy and have it be fun because again, it's a third of our life, right? But if that's how much you're thinking about it, even more so, wow, that's
It's
a
a
lot of
lot.
life.
It's a lot.
That's not, you could have done with something else, right?
Yeah.
So, and last one, I'll kind of go into more of the mama things. So, in pregnant women with gestational diabetes, intuitive eating behaviors predicted lower anxiety and depression. So, calmer bodies, and then healthier gestational weight throughout the pregnancy, and then a better blood glucose control, during the pregnancy and after. So less risk of type 2 diabetes when they just don't freak out about it. So again, and being mindful and intuitive, even with health markers, has controlled them.
Yeah. And I will link to all of these studies. I think one of the things that I really love in looking through the ones that you shared, I mean, these are longitudinal, they
Mhm,
are meta-analyses, they are some of the highest quality studies we can do on this kind of
mhm,
questioning. So this is
mhm.
this is really it's great science to point to. Um, one of the things you just said through all of that, and I will remember, intuitive eating is really about getting us curious about ourselves. I love this way of thinking about it. I think especially as moms, um, people talk about self-care. And for me, I realized that self-care was finding a way to exercise that shut off my brain. Like I really needed that full break because a lot of the kind of exercising I was doing or things like I was running through my to-do list or I was thinking about everybody else. And if I can shut that all off, even for 30 minutes, I come back refreshed. But I had to get curious about what it is I really needed in order to be the best me that I could be for myself and my family. And this is what you're talking about with intuitive eating, really questioning ourselves and letting that be a part of what drives us.
I think this is the most important thing because I think it's funny. I talk to some people and they ask about all these crazy diets, like, is this good? Is this bad? This should I do? And I just kind of sit back and like, hold on, let's just think about something. Like, what is your favorite foods? What do you enjoy eating? Like, what different textural components are your favorite? What does hunger and fullness feel like to you versus just the rumbling in your tummy? Like, do you understand that? And 99% of the time, no one can answer that question.
It's
It's
amazing.
it's so crazy, and then after that week, they'll come back after them being curious, and like, "I didn't realize that I was lacking produce and freshness and how much I enjoy that." Or I realized that I wasn't having anything crunchy, and that's why I felt full, but I kept craving something. I'm like, "Oh, interesting." And then when they actually ate it, they felt satisfied and satiated. They're like, I didn't crave as much sweets at the end of the night. Not saying that's bad. I love my sweets at the end of the night, but I could have one and be done. Or I could be like, I really don't actually want it, right? Because you are satisfied from different textural components, different flavor components throughout the day that you weren't even paying attention to before.
Yeah. This feels like it could be daunting to someone coming to it for the first time because I imagine there's a fair amount of trial and error through this, of really, even in thinking about like, well, trying to identify what is the feeling that I'm having right now? What is that craving? And then trying to satiate that crave.
Mhm.
And maybe it doesn't work, maybe it does. And I can imagine again that it's going to take some time. Is that true? Do you find with your clients that it does take a little bit of learning? And connected to that, how can someone who's interested in beginning this process and exploring this set themselves up for success?
Yeah, it is daunting, yes, and this is why I always say having a support person like a dietitian is really helpful, because I know some people are like, "Well, I should know all of this, or I know what healthy food is," but you don't. You don't know how to get curious and have support and, like, ask questions when you need to and feel like someone's actually answering them for you versus just searching it online, right? And I like to tell people, "Okay, how old are you now? How many years have you been eating?" Right? Okay, well, we still have a lot of years left of this. Even me as a dietitian, I'm not perfect. I'm still asking myself questions every single day because that's just how life is, right? So I kind of break it down first. There's not a destination here. This is a journey,
Mm, yes.
right? And we literally just take one meal at a time, one day at a time, and go from there. And just try it every time you sit down. Just instead of thinking, I have to do this for the rest of my life, no, just think about, okay, this is a meal. How am I feeling? Am I hungry? What does that mean? What is one thing that sounds good to me? and start there. It's easier to have to tune in with ourselves when we have a consistent energy and consistent blood sugar. So it's not even about, okay, let's eat all these perfect meals and snacks, but really like, let's just start eating something every three
Mhm.
to 5 hours
Okay.
because we need to get some consistency and start reminding our body like, oh, we need to be hungry, or it's okay to send the hunger signals because I'm gonna get energy next time. Because this is another problem. Our body stops sending hunger signals if it doesn't think that it's going to be used.
Yeah, okay.
Because so let's start eating something every 3 to 5 hours. Let's maintain that blood sugar so we could actually have a calmer body and have more ability to tune into it. Because,
To
for
listen to it,
example,
of
if you ever
course,
get
yeah.
to a meal and you're so ravenously hungry, you literally can't think straight, right? Like, I just need to eat something now. We can't think logically in that time. So, if we have something in our body and a stable blood sugar, like, then we could kind of sit and be able to have the energy to think, okay, what is my body feeling? What am
Mhm.
I craving? Versus just having this such severe urge to eat.
So valuable. Start slow, one meal at a time, little by little, a little becomes a lot, and, um, don't try to do it when you can't when you're hungry, when your body and brain are in a state of being unable to listen to itself.
Mhm.
Great, great, easy pieces of advice. Do you meal plan?
So, okay, so this is very individual because I have some clients that like to actually get recipes. For
Huh?
me, that's overwhelming. I I like to think of meals as components. Like I need a carb, a protein, a fat, and a color. And I think of what's in my pantry right now. I have rice. That's easy. That's my carb. Okay. I just bought a rotisserie chicken. That's my protein.
Love.
And then I kind of thinking Mexican, so I'll do some like guacamole as my fat. And then I have frozen wok veggies and I'll saute that up and put it on top. Okay, there's my carb, protein, fat, color. So for me, I kind of take the week of what are some staple carbs, then what are some proteins that I could kind of pair, and then what are some fats, and how can I just put it together? I'm more one that kind of thinks day to day. And
For me, the stress comes in not having an idea about what I wanna do and making sure that those ingredients are available, and then it can be switched up any night
yeah,
differently. We all do it. I thought, we're not all doing this the same? Every person I talked to had some other little thing that they did. Um
yeah. That's what's challenging with that question, right? Because and also too, I ebb and flow. Sometimes I have
Mhm.
more motivation and I get really creative and I pick a few recipes. Sometimes I literally just have staples and I have ideas and then day to day I'll kind of put it together really easily. So it is a hard question because I think people want answers. They just tell me how to do it. But I don't know you. I don't know what is realistic because I also don't want to suggest something and then you get so overwhelmed that
Yes,
you just give up completely.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. And really, the question stemmed from how can I, as someone who has this thing hanging on the refrigerator saying, these are the meals we've planned this week,
Mhm,
add intuitive eating to that? But that
mhm.
is a way. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
kind of am kind of already doing it, I guess. So I have a meal plan that I have made on a weekend. How do you talk about all of this with your kids?
Yeah. I like to explain this, you know, so for me, it's less about sitting down with my kids and teaching them a lesson because
Mhm. That
kids
rarely works.
kids really don't at any age, they don't like to listen to their parents, really, to be honest with you, okay? Goes in one ear and out the other. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but you say something to your kids and they say, "Yeah, uh-huh, mom." And then the same exact thing is said by somebody else, like, "Oh my god, this is so cool."
This is the most brilliant thing that was said. Yes, I know.
So, with that, it's really more about the way we live day to day, how I live. So I try to model mindful and intuitive eating by showing them that all foods fit and by not labeling things as good or bad. So in our home, we do not use the words good or bad when it comes to food. We do not use the words healthy or unhealthy when it comes to food. There is a way to use healthy, but that's overall, mentally, physically, emotionally. But we do not use those words. I tried to show my kids that I could eat a cookie in at breakfast if I want a cookie at breakfast, or if they're asking for a cookie at night, and I don't make it a big deal. I either give them the cookie with another snack. So so then I know, like, if you're hungry too, you probably need to nourish yourself. But if your brain is hungry for this cookie, then you can nourish yourself as well. But I give both options.
Mhm.
But also if they want it right before dinner, I'm like, okay, dude, I know you want a cookie, but we are about to eat dinner. If you still want that cookie after dinner, then let's talk about it.
Mm,
And also too, if
great.
they don't finish their dinner, I don't force them to. I leave it there. I ask them, "Hey, didn't seem like you ate a lot. What is your tummy feeling?"
Mm,
And sometimes they can't comprehend it, so I will leave it sitting there for a little while. It's not, the olden days, like this is dinner time and now it's gonna clean up time. Kids' brains don't work that way.
yep.
Right? So we kind of figure out the hunger and fullness together, and we question it
Mhm.
together. So I want them to see that food is about nourishment, mind, body, and about enjoyment and connection, because that's food. It's fun, right? Having ice cream with your best friend, going over for a dinner party. It's about joy and connection, and I want them to grow up trusting their bodies and knowing it's okay to eat when they're hungry and to stop when they're full, or if they're at a dinner party and they don't want to stop because they're full, and they understand, like, this is okay, I'm okay with this decision.
Yeah.
That's how I want them to be able to act.
Yeah. I, um, I really like all of those, and there are some very specific things in there that you do. We do that in our house as well. I think it has gotten more challenging for me. My kids, I have 3. They are 16, 13, and 12,
With a
and
teen.
they are at an age now where, I am not I am less responsible for bringing the food to them, right? They're just so much more capable of doing this themselves, and one of the things I think that poses a potential challenge for parents, but I think the thing that I keep coming back to is that it is still my responsibility, my opportunity to choose what foods come into the house. They may have free range. They can have whatever is in the house, but I get to choose what comes into the house. And so if I'm not filling it with foods that I don't want them to eat, they get to do the work of listening to their own bodies. I can't know what that feels like. And they can choose from the foods that are available.
Yeah, I really like that because, you know, it goes back to, we are the ones that provide the food, and then they get to choose what and how much they eat. So that is kind of the basis of feeding kids. We choose what, they choose how much and it. And that's okay. I know sometimes as parents we freak out like they're not eating enough or they're eating too much, but if you just not freak out and allow them, then they're learning to be intuitive and to make those mistakes, or oh my gosh, that was so much food, I can't do that again, right? But if someone judged them, then they almost shame eat or don't eat after that.
Yes. Yeah.
But we have to remember, yeah, sometimes there's a week that they eat so much and you're like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And then they go for a week that they eat like nothing, and you're like, okay, they really know how to balance it out though. And you could also have those conversations like, oh, how did that make your tummy feel? Are you still good? You good digestion? Is your tummy kind of hurting? And then teaching them that way. So these are the questions to ask in a very neutral, non-judgmental way.
Yeah. I mean, to your point earlier, it is being curious and helping them be curious. Those are the kinds of questions you just articulated there. How does it feel? How do you feel? How does your
Mhm.
stomach feel? Yeah. Um, One of the reasons I initially reached out, because my 12-year-old, she's become really aware of her body and of its size and shape and how it is different than her sisters and then other girls in her class. And, I mean, all of this that we have been talking, I've been doing this with my kids since they were little. I've never forced them to clean their plate. We don't have good and bad foods, everything in moderation. It feels like it is an incredibly complex and complicated conversation to be having with her. And no matter how many times I talk about that all bodies are different. And, it's really, we need to figure out what works for your body, for you to feel good in your body. It feels so heavy. And
Oh.
yeah, and so, I don't know what kind of insights you may have to share there for someone who is wanting to talk about these issues with a teen who is very much still growing and developing and becoming her grown up self.
Mhm. You know, I'll be honest, I don't have teens yet personally,
Hmm.
but as a dietitian, I have worked with teens a lot in the past, especially, you know, in eating disorder treatment centers. Unfortunately, that's kind of the main population right there. And it's because their brains still aren't, they don't get it yet. They just live really in the now and they don't understand that this is not forever. So I think one thing is to continue to have these conversations every single day, to validate their feelings, to make them feel safe. Like, I understand this is hard. I understand you feel X, or I understand you're comparing yourself to whatever, and to validate these things and to keep the door open for these
Hmm.
conversations and reminding them that it's totally normal to notice your body and your body changing, and that food and eating don't need to be about guilt or restriction, right? Because it's more about like, okay, let's talk about what your body is doing for you. You aced that test. That is because you nourished your brain to be able to do that.
Mm.
Food does that for you. Or you ran the mile and you like cut off 2 minutes from your time last time. My goodness, that is food. That is food, and you're continuing to nourish your body, and your body's changing. It's able to do that because you're continuing to nourish it, right?
Hmm.
Like, do you see mom? Mom was just like you, but now her body has was able to go through those crazy weird changes, right? Because unfortunately, when you're going through puberty, it's going to go through changes. So whatever you look like or however you feel right now is literally not going to be forever, right? Because you need to go through this time to be able to shift and to grow and to mold into who you will become, right?
Yeah.
So it is okay to feel uncomfortable because your body is literally growing. Like, it's literally growing. That is uncomfortable. I
Yeah.
understand that. I cannot feel it as you're feeling it right now, but like, this is just the time of life and it's going to kind of suck. And that's it's okay to suck, but I promise you it will not be forever, right? And we need to nourish it so it can do and be who it needs to be and do,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
it's hard and they're not going to always believe you, but keep saying it. So just keep that door open, keep those conversations going, and make sure they feel very safe to have these feelings.
Yes. That's great. Thank you. It is a process. And it is not forever.
Mhm.
Those are important messages. And I think you said, and this really resonates. What I want is for all of my kids to feel like they can come to us with whatever experiences they're having, and that we remain open to being people that they can come to and talk to. And so just listening again, being present, and not shutting it down so that they continue to come for the small things and the big things.
I,
Yeah.
I think that's so important because the thing is, your kids are going to make mistakes, and they should, right?
Hmm.
And they're gonna do bad things or wrong things. But if they feel like they could come to you, it's gonna make them feel less shameful or like internally a bad person, right? And
Hmm.
they're not holding on to those emotions that usually lead to bad habits when they get older.
Yeah. I try not to let myself get to a place of real stress or concern that we may be screwing this up. It's a challenge as a
Mhm.
daily challenge as
Oh
a
yes.
parent. Yeah.
Oh yes.
um, yeah. But this is why we have a tribe, right? And we
Oh yes.
listen to people like you share their stories and their experiences.
Yes, I think that is because yes, I agree. Sometimes I get concerned about things, but I don't want to show it to my kids. So I
Hmm.
talk to my other mama friends. I'm like, okay, this is like what I'm feeling. I just need to let it out. And then sometimes I voice it to the universe or into my friends. I'm like, oh, okay, wait, this is normal. It's fine. It'll pass. It's okay.
It's okay. It's good. It's good. I'm not alone. I'm not alone
Yes,
with this.
exactly.
Uh,
Exactly.
99% of the time. You're not alone with anything you're
Oh,
experiencing.
100%.
If someone was interested in learning more about you, working with you, you mentioned maybe developing a digital course or an evergreen course maybe coming in the future.
100%. So a few ways to work with me. One, I do have an ebook that goes
Yes.
into like more the basics of nutrition and kind of how to lessen the stress of this topic. And I kind of point into making it more about the carbs, protein, fat, and color, and how to easily put those together and kind of how that looks, and to practice intuitive and mindful eating. And so there's one. And I also talk about my favorite products and brands that might be, again, I don't like to say good or bad food, but maybe a little bit more nutritious of an option. And then two, I take virtual clients so I can work with people one-on-one virtually from most places legally. So we'll put that in there.
Yes.
I'll see if I could work with you. And then two, I am 100% finishing and creating a course right now for moms, whether that be you desire to become a mom or that you're at a mom in pretty much any of the stage. And it kind of goes into overall health. I think people specifically want to talk about food, but as we kind of noted here, food is a very minimal part of being healthy, right? It's how we think about food, how we think about our bodies, what is our environment like, what is our stress levels like. And so my course kind of talks and walks through all of these kind of things, you know. So my goal is to make this really relatable and attainable and just more digestible for people. I really want to make it something that has little snippets of everything. It has just the audio versions if people want to listen to it. It has the video versions if people want to see me. It has worksheets if people want to use worksheets. It has little motivational quotes if that really helps people. Has little snippets of conversation, little tips, nutrition tips, little mental health tips. So it's coming along and it might be a few more months, but it's going to come.
That's amazing. And so once it's here, we will definitely come back and relink in the show notes if you're listening to this after it has launched. I know that your website also has a
Yes.
resource page that has
Yes.
tons of books and blogs and other individuals. And we will link to a way to get directly to your book specifically in the show notes as well.
Perfect.
Yes. And of course, follow on all the social platforms if that is where you choose to spend your time and energy. Anything else, Emily, that I didn't ask you or that you want to be sure you leave listeners knowing, feeling?
Yeah. You don't know everyone's stories, and no, not everybody knows your story. So just remember, when you're comparing yourself to somebody else, whether how they're eating, what they're eating, how they're moving, or how they're living your life, you do not know everything, right? You don't know if they have disordered eating. You don't know if all they think about every single day is food, or if they're living in the gym and have no social life. You don't know if they have an illness or a family member pass, and the same, and they don't know you, right? So when we could view other people as motivation or inspiration, but just make sure you're focusing on yourself, because you're the only one living in your body, no one else is. So how can we make the best choices for us every day? And that's
Yes.
all that matters.
That is what a beautiful sentiment. The cover can maybe be motivating, but there's so much more behind there.
Yes, love it. That's funny.
Great message to leave us all with. Thank you.
Awesome. It was so nice talking to you. I love this topic so much. I could talk someone's ear off.
This does not need to be the end. This can be the beginning of something. This
I
is
love it.
really great. Okay.
Always welcome.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure. I will link everything in show notes and say goodbye for now.
Totally fine with that. You could do.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for hanging out with me on The Weekly Parent. If something you heard today made you think, laugh, or feel just a little more human, don't be shy. Subscribe, text it to your BFF or group chat, or leave us a review. Remember, you'll find free tools, downloads, and whatever else I've cooked up this week in the show notes. Check those out. Parenting is messy. Let's not do it alone. See you next time.